Bem, então vamos começar com a palestra do Charles e do Cian. Eles vão nos ensinar a ser Lua Superhero. Uma salva de palmas para eles.
All right, thank you all so much for being here. I want to take just a moment. Can we get a round of applause for our organizers? Okay. just sincerely, thank you guys for putting this together. Look around you. There's a room full of people. Everybody came together for this event. And also, I said in the hall, thank you to Roberto. You know, without his inspiration in starting this whole thing, none of us would be here, and we'd all be doing other things, which I think we like what we're doing. So thank you so much for that as well. So, all right, so there's a lot of technical stuff going on today. What we want to do is give you guys a little bit of inspiration to show you what can be possible with Lua. And we all know that Lua rocks. We love it. And I just want to show you how you can take that a little further with Corona SDK to build out games, general purpose apps, business-related apps, and stuff like that. So I'm going to show you some of the developer success stories that we've had in the community. And but first of all, I want to introduce the Director of Engineering, Sean Head. Sean is what? Your employee number one? Yeah, no, employee number one. Yeah, so he knows where all the dead bodies are buried. And then I am the Director of Publisher Relations. And so that basically means I get to be a cheerleader. I get to hang out with all the smart people. I'm also the host of our Corona Geek podcast, which we do on a regular basis, and you can find anywhere just by putting in /Corona Geek. That's the best way to find that. So like I said, this is going to be a talk about what the community is doing and showing you some of the great stories that are there. And so we want to focus a lot on that. We'll also have a little bit of a tech demo near the end, just to kind of give you an idea of what's possible. But I want to focus a lot on the stories here. So Corona, just a little bit of background. Corona was started in 2009. Basically started as your prodigal story of two guys starting a project. It quickly got VC funding, and like you were saying, Sean, Apple was just now coming on the scene.
Do a little bit of color with that. The two founders were both working at Adobe at the time on the Flash project, both in mobile and on the web, and they were in meetings talking about what to do about mobile, and everyone was holding an iPhone, and the people above them were saying this isn't something we should worry about. And then they released the store, and it sort of fell out from there. We're like, we could probably do something with this, and the big guys are abandoning it. So, like, let's forge our own way.
So, does this one? You hit this? Is it working? No. Push the button. What? Push that button. There we go. Okay. So is that okay? That works. Okay. So. You know, that gives you an idea of, again, just as Roberto started this thing and you don't know what's going to come out of it and it gets huge, this is one of those types of things where somebody had an idea, they put it into action, and now look at what's going on in the world. So yeah, I quickly gained VC funding, and one of the core goals of Corona, even today, is to focus on writing your code just one time in Lua. So there's a lot of different options out there. There's a lot of different complexities, which we'll talk about in just a moment, but we wanted to make it as simple as possible. And Lua is really approachable. We all know that somebody can pick it up in 10 minutes. I mean, if you can make toast in the morning, you can write some Lua code. We wanted also to abstract and compress things down into as few lines of code as possible. So say take something that takes 20 lines of code and get it down into one line of code. Also to be able to publish to multiple platforms, because you don't want to just hit iOS, you want to hit Android, you want to hit everything. Anything that comes new on the market, you want to be able to hit that. And Corona lets you do that. So also to be able to iterate as quickly as possible. So, you know, it used to be you sort of had to build everything, put it on your device, see how it looked, go back to the code. You don't want to do that. Corona has a simulator built right into it. anytime you hit save on your changes, the simulator automatically refreshes and you see your changes instantly. We'll look at that in just a little bit. So with Lua, again, focusing strictly on Lua, you've got the option of being able to publish to iOS, Android, Kindle, Windows Phone, Windows Desktop, OS X. I mean, with Corona, the basic premise is if something comes on the market that becomes a leader in that field, we add on support for it, and you go to your original app, you can build for that new platform, and in most cases, you don't even have to change your code. We recently added support for Apple TV. There were a lot of developers who were already creating desktop versions of their apps, and because the aspect ratio is pretty much the same, they were able to go to Apple TV without too much of changes to their code. All right, so today, Corona was this is where Corona is today. So basically, we were purchased in 2015 at the end of last year, and we were purchased by Perk. Perk is a publicly traded company in Canada. They have offices in Austin, Palo Alto, India, and also in Waterloo, Canada, which is where the financial people are. And we also have 150 people in the organization. So we went from Corona itself being about a 10, 15 person team to being a 150 person organization, which is fantastic because you go from having having people wear multiple hats to being able to having other people in the room talking about Corona in a way that you never had before. So there's all this extra support. So I'm in the Austin office, and there's times when people are talking about Corona. I'm like, what? And then I realize they're not talking to me. They're talking about a project that involves Corona, and it's really kind of surreal.
The core team is still pretty lean, though. I think we have one engineer per platform we support, loosely speaking.
Yeah. So and I put up here, 20 people. So there's 11 engineers. Pretty much each engineer owns a platform, and then they kind of cross in spaces. But if somebody contacts me and says, "Hey, I'm having an issue with," I know exactly the belly button to push and put them in contact with that person. I don't do a lot of belly button pushing though. They don't like that. So a lot's changed since 2009. Apple has put out Swift. They'd open sourced it. Google has recently pushed out, their Android Studio, which is improving their suite of development tools. And there's a lot of web technologies. I think we've kind of poked at JavaScript along the way. But there's a lot of people who are seriously trying to make that work, but they're still not getting the results that they want. And we get that question a lot at conferences. People are like, well, what about this? And I'm like, well, here's the thing: is you're going to put that in a wrapper, and it's going to be sort of webified. And if you want 60 frames a second, you want particle effects, you want to go deep, and you want to go, you want to do it strong. You need to do something like with Lua, where you can build to a native application at the end. And so also App Store competition has increased considerably. So the challenge that developers are faced with is, do I learn iOS? Do I learn Objective-C and Swift? Because those two are kind of like living in the same worlds these days. Java, C#. Do I take sort of HTML and Java and CSS, and do I kind of wrap it and smash it and do all those things with it? What do I do? And of course, we feel like the solution is to just use Lua. Is just to use Lua. Well, I thought I had a slide there, but apparently not. So it's just to use Lua. But also, John Romero, I don't know if you guys have heard of John Romero, he came out and he said that basically creating something that nobody's ever seen before, that's the trick. So, so if you're not familiar with John, he is, if you've ever played Wolfenstein or Quake or Doom or any of those things, that guy is the designer. He originally formed the studio with a couple other people and did his magic there. So I want to show you briefly. I've got a couple of videos here that I want to show you. And one is of John doing the Is this audio hooked up? Do you know? No? Okay. Okay. We're going to try it and we'll see what comes out. If it doesn't work, we'll move on.
My name is John Romero, and I'm a game designer, and programmer, and I've been making games for over 30 years. I started my career back in 1979, actually, when I started programming, and it was basically because of arcade games. And I was addicted to arcade games, and that got me interested in programming, so I learned how to code on the Apple II computer, and the Commodore 64 computer. Then I learned the PC, and I've been making pretty much all different kinds of games, but the games that got really popular in the 90s were the first-person shooter games that I worked on. Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, and Quake. And then I moved into mobile after that, and I moved into MMOs, and then moved into Facebook. I started a mobile game company in 2001, and that was back in the days of J2ME and Brew and the Nokia taco phone, the N-Gage. And so I did a lot of programming back then, but it was pretty awful because there was no real software support. On a Pocket PC, the one that I actually liked the best was a Pocket PC, and it was very old school. It had a frame buffer, so you just programmed into memory just like normal. But after that, we programmed GBAs and all that, which are mobile. And after those days, I moved into MMO, but then I came back to mobile probably in 2011, I think, starting the Facebook game company. Mobile's really hot and Facebook's really hot, so we can basically make companion games to the Facebook games, and so I got really excited about doing iOS programming for the Apple iPhone, especially when they opened the store in 2008. The challenges that game developers are facing today on mobile is trying to make a game that has been made already. The big problem, even on Facebook, is that everybody's copying everybody else's games. Nowadays with frameworks like Corona, it makes it a lot easier to get your game design on the device. And so that's really important, especially people who are excited about game design. They want to come up with a great idea and they want to see it immediately so they can see whether it's got a good mechanic or not. And if you have to do a ton of low-level programming to get it up on the screen, that's just it's going to take too long to get the game done, and you might not even finish it. But with a framework like Corona, you get it up really fast, so you can actually focus on the game design, and it lets a person basically focus on what can I do that's different, that's not like all the other games, because it's so easy to put stuff up on the screen. Developing with Corona has been something that really supports the way that I know that game development should be done, which is extremely fast iteration and being able to debug. Super, super important. So the way, with Corona, when you have the iPhone simulator up on the screen and you're editing text in whatever editor you want, as soon as you save that file, the simulator reloads. Just automatically. It's like, oh, here's your new code, bam. So there's no compile cycle that you have to wait for and then rerun it and relaunch the simulator. It's just sitting there relaunching by itself, which is super awesome because it's really fast. And then if you change any of the files in the hierarchy, like the graphics that the game is dependent on, it reloads again because it knows you just changed some assets. So it's been really fast and smooth to develop in the framework, especially if you want to make a game that's has a huge world in it. You don't have to program. You don't have to program the old way where you have to worry about what's on screen and kind of do your own clipping. You can just draw the whole world, and Corona will just clip it for you, and then you just move the coordinates of the world around, and it just redraws. So you don't even have to worry about the world management stuff. If you have a level in memory, you just draw the whole thing. And Corona just says, yeah, I'm not drawing all that stuff there because it's not even on the screen. Normally your code would have to do that, but Corona...
Yeah, that's a little bit of a fanboy moment there with, let me get this back over here. All right, okay. So word of warning to the next presenters, do not move the equipment. Okay, so there you go. So the solution really in our mind is that that you use Lua, because you can get to market quickly, and you can iterate fast, and because you're focused on one code base, then you're just not splitting your attention across all these different disciplines. You're getting the job done. And so we all know, I mean, everybody here probably knows, because Lua has a rich history. A lot of people came into awareness when World of Warcraft was introduced, and people did a lot of scripting for plugins and things like that. At conferences, we get about a 50-50 split. When people come to the booth, they say, well, what do you use? And you say, well, you use Lua. You write everything in Lua. And about 50% of the crowd goes, what is that? And then you tell them, and then they go, oh, okay. And then the other 50% of the crowd goes, oh, yeah. And I think that's interesting, because sometimes when you tell a person a piece of information, you get reactions that aren't intended, right? They don't know that they're doing it. You might, like telling somebody that you tell them something and they give you a stinky face, But you never get the stinky face when you tell them that it's Lua, right? They recognize what it is, and they go, oh, yeah, okay, And it's a very positive feeling. They like the fact that it's there. And it's also, we've run into Verizon, uses it in set-top boxes, and there's software and hardware solutions, and it's open source, and it's just, and adoption is growing. I don't know what it is. I think maybe there's that tipping point in all technologies, all topics, where you have the early adopters. I think you were talking about earlier, but the early adopters, and then at some point it becomes sort of mainstream, and then it's that tipping point where it's just everybody's like, now if you're indie, you're out. You don't want to do it anymore, right? Because you're like, oh, everybody's doing that now. I don't want to do that anymore. So anyway. So I want to tell you a couple of quick stories about some of the developers we're seeing success with Lua and with Corona. Taps Games is Brazil-based. They have about a 60-person team, and they have 200 plus apps in the App Store. So I'm going to show you another quick video. This last video I'm going to show you, but it's a pretty kick-ass video. So I definitely want to show you this video, just to kind of give you an idea of their life in the day in their studio.
So you think working with games is a piece of cake, right? I've always been a true game lover. I'm so passionate about games, I've decided to design games for a living. And that is what I do here at Taps Games. Way harder than making it through your favorite game's hardest level is creating a successful game altogether. But hey, that's what makes it fun. If you like games, you like challenges. Here at Taps, I am what they call a game designer. This means I'm in charge of designing the architecture, the mechanics, and all the systems of the game, integrating all the areas of the studio to create the best user experience for our players. People here on the business intelligence team analyze all of our game's data and gives us valuable input so we can improve, providing all the help we need. Meanwhile, folks on the marketing crew are always looking out for our users' opinions and suggestions. They also keep a close look on the market to help with our game's rankings on the stores, making sure we don't miss out on any trends. It's the team of artists that take the idea of the game and create its whole visual experience, all the way from user interface with good usability to charismatic characters that speak to its public. Much more to a game than meets the eye. The sound design folks also help build the game's universe, composing soundtracks and sound effects that will be part of the lives of millions of players around the world. Meanwhile, the business development area is making new partnerships and helping the development of our brands. Never stops, and the Human Resources Department is up to the reward plans for every employee and work to keep our office atmosphere casual, just the way we like it. But for the TAPS train to run on the right tracks, the administration team is essential. They aim to make life easier here in the studio, making sure everyone's got all the infrastructure needed to keep the game on. Our game has yet to come to life, and this is where the developers do their job. They design and implement the game's software architecture, connecting the game design, art and sound design pieces into a working game. On every step of the way, the quality assurance team acts to guarantee that our game is working according to plan. They test and identify issues to be corrected, and also study improvements on the game. The QA team helps the whole studio to move forward. Now with the game in hands, it's time for it to be released by the live production team. Not only do they develop our automatic deploy system, but also integrate new services into the game, while also keeping an eye for any issues with published games. After all this hard work, it's time to celebrate with our traditional Friday's happy hour. Because here at TAPS, we value not only results, but also the team. TAPS, creating fun for everyone.
So don't you want to live in Brazil now? I certainly did. After I saw that, I was like, I want to go there. All right. Let's see if my clicker's still working here. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So I don't want to give you the impression that you have to have a 60-person team, though. They do all their stuff with Corona, okay, but you don't have to have a 60-person team, okay? Red Beach, who's right over there, yay! They're how many people are in your team?
We've gained over 2.
You've gained 2, how many?
2 with games.
You get 2, okay, 2 with games. So and they do contract work also as well and things like that, and so they developed their own stuff, their own intellectual property, and they do work for other people. So you can still be a 2-person shop, a 1-person shop, and use Corona and Lua to run a profitable business. So here is Takashi Yoda. He lives in Japan. We released Apple TV as a platform on Corona, and then AppLovin ran a contest in San Francisco. So Takashi decided that he was going to fly to San Francisco, and he was going to enter in this contest. Now, the backstory to Takashi is that he lives on about $1,000 a month in Japan, and he does game development specifically. That's all he does. And when he goes out once a month, he says, he takes a coupon to a fast food restaurant, and that's his that's his outing. So this guy is totally committed to what he's doing is the point. And flying to San Francisco was a big risk for him because it's expensive and time consuming. And so he decided he would do it. He flew to San Francisco. He competed in the competition, and he won first place, and he won $25,000, which, at $1,000 a month gets you about 2 more years of, of fast food coupons. This is Paulo. Paulo does Hirokins. It's a IoT sort of hardware software solution where he's doing interactive storytelling. Basically, the app that's running up there has a story going, and at certain points the child is told to jump or run or do whatever, and they wear this character on their wrist, and the 2 devices interact, and then when they do that they get a certain number of stars, and then hey, good job, that sort of thing. So we met him at Apps World this year, which was and at GDC, which was wildly enough, Apps World this year was right next to the IoT convention as well. So it was kind of a nice little combo. This is a two-person team. LaserDog is a two-person team in Leeds, and the gentleman here is Rob Allison. He's kind of a funny character. He's a creative, and Tim and I were talking about this earlier, how people are who are creatives. I don't care if you write software or if you paint pictures or if you compose music, you are a creative. And Rob is kind of one of those people who does all those things. So they published Hapiko, the game there on the left with the name on it, of course, and that was featured for like 3 weeks in the Apple App Store during the Christmas holidays, and Apple just loved them to death. And one of the backstory to that is that Rob, he composed all of the music for Hapiko on a Game Boy. So he hacked the thing, literally, soldering wires onto it so he could get a clean audio out. He bought a MIDI cartridge online for this old school Game Boy, and he composed all the music and then edited it, so it's all this great 8-bit music. You don't have to do that. You can, just saying. I'm just saying, he did. This is Evan. Evans, he wrote Eggs. He lives in France, but he competed in the Big Indie Pitch in London, and he won first prize. Eggs is a fantastic game where you are doing sort of the Angry Birds, launching a character around, but you're also doing puzzles. And as you earn experience points, then you get to customize your character, and you can have multiple characters running at the same time. There's just a lot of great elements to the game, and he did that himself. He did the artwork, the programming himself. And then also Kestrel Games, just recently we came from Vancouver. Kestrel Games placed top 5 in the Big Indie Pitch in Vancouver as well. This is Questlord. So Eric Kincaid started his development when he was 16. He's in his 40s now. He did coin-operated machines, so arcade-style games. He worked in the game industry for years. And the interesting thing about the game industry proper, not necessarily maybe like the indie space, but when you go to you go to these big events like E3 and you talk to developers who work in game studios, they'll refer to a game as their game. And you have a little bit of a hard time differentiating between their game that they own and their game that they worked on, because they're so passionate about it and they spend so much time that it's their game, but they don't have full creative control over that game. They still have to, at the end of the day, do what they're told. Eric started using Corona. He loves Lua because you can just pick it up right away, and he loves the fact that he controls every element of the game. It's an old RPG style dungeon crawler, and he's built up a storyline that has a whole community behind it. People debate why this dwarf and that dwarf, and what, if you're taking it to the big mountain, those types of things. And so much so that he's even written other characters into the game, people who are real world characters. But Corona's not just for games, it's also for business style apps. Here's a restaurant app that's done with beautiful high quality images. Here's a news aggregator with some server-based AI on the back end, written in Perl. So the front end the client is written in Corona. Here's some small business apps that are written by a single developer in New York. And real quick, I'm going to do a 5-minute video. I'm told I have 2 minutes, so I'm going to do a 5-minute video in 2 minutes. And so I want to show you real quick Corona in action. So I'm going to go here to the desktop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this folder here. So when you download Corona, it comes with a bunch of sample apps. And inside of those sample apps are just these little snippets of things that you can do with Corona. It's great. It's like, you're kind of doing stuff in 10 lines of code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Hello World folder. I'm going to drop it here on Corona Simulator, which I already had it open. And hopefully, I'm going to show this to you, if it will. There we go. So when the simulator, Okay, is that small? That's small. No, it's big up there. It's small down here, it's big up there. So when the simulator first opens, it opens up your project. It shows whatever your project is doing. So here we've got, I'll show you the code in just a second, but here we've got a project with some physics involved. So if I refresh the simulator, a box is going to drop from the sky and bounce off the screen. Okay, that is comprised of 10 lines of code, which are somewhere. There we go. Yep. That's comprised of 10 lines of code, which were.
I have this open. You just want to switch. I can drive and you can talk.
Well, I've already got it up there. So these 10 lines of code, what you're doing is, so Corona has a whole physics engine built into it, OpenAL, OpenGL. It's got a bunch of libraries for network APIs. You know, if you want to push information back and forth, it's got JSON support. It's got, I mean, there's a whole SDK that's here that I can show you later. But in this example, basically what we're doing is we're bringing in the physics engine, starting it up, adding those objects, display objects to the screen, and then adding some physics bodies to them. And then at some point, we're setting the rotation of that box. So when it falls from the sky, it's a little crooked, just so it has some visual interest. So if I change that code and bring this over here, if I change that code and hit save, so before the box dropped off the screen, it rolled off the screen. This time, it stays in place. And that's basically the concept with Corona, is that every time you change your code, you're seeing your changes happen interactively. And that speeds up your development and makes it that much faster to do. So you're rewriting the... Some little live coding here. So while he's doing that, I'll just say that you can use any code editor that you want. I'm using Atom. We have packages for Atom, Sublime. There's even a plugin for Xcode if you want. Go ahead. Ah, 2 boxes. Ooh, it's getting crazy up in here. Whoa! No, oh, I thought they were going to stack. Nice. So yeah, so you've changed you can apply physics bodies to different objects, and you can change all the different physics properties. So you can change the friction of the ground, or the bounce that the ground experiences or sends back, the boxes themselves and things like that. So real quickly, I just want to wrap this up. Yeah, one more minute, I promise. Okay, so I wanted to show you a more sophisticated example, but we're out of time. All of this information is on the slides, which I have already tweeted, so you can go grab that. Links are to everything. There's also revenue models to monetize your apps, so whether you want to do that with paid in-app purchases or ads, you can do that as well. We have an extensive library of plugins for monetization, for adding on different features. You know, if you want to add on iCloud support and things like that to your Apple TV app or your other apps, you can. There is also a project out there called Coronium, which is Lua on the server. So it's not quite as extensive as what we've got over here with Loveit, but it is a great option for having back-end code married with the front-end code in Lua code in Corona. Okay, yeah, so built it on top of OpenRusty, but it's a great project. It's such a great project, we actually hired the guy that started the project. He's doing our Corona Cloud implementation. So there you go. Lua is an incredible language. Adoption is growing significantly. So don't, if you feel like you're wondering, should you learn other things? I'd say no. Focus entirely on Lua, because at some point, if you get distracted by something shiny, then you're going to come back and you're going to say, oh, I should have just stuck with that. So, and that's it. So I just ask that you just go download Corona SDK, give it a try. If you have any questions, ask me out in the hall. Thank you.
Bem, a gente tem tempo para uma pergunta rapidinha. Alguém quer fazer ela? Ninguém? One question? Ah.
Do you have anything ready for GUI or for those cases of non-game apps? Do the developers created their own GUI library, or do you have something ready for?
So we have a widget library which mimics a lot of the standard things that you would find in other platforms, buttons and drop downs and sliders and things like that. But the recent news app that I showed, he wrote his own custom interactions because he wanted menus to fly out a certain way and things to happen a certain way, and so he wrote all the custom stuff himself.